Life Without Light Rail. It's going to start at 6 in council chambers. It's supposed to be kind of a public discussion of what you want to see us moving forward with public transportation. So just a housekeeping note there. I don't want to make anyone feel like my opinion on Hens is not going to be wavering. I am very passionate about the issue. I have always been a supporter of this cause, even before I ran for council. But that said, it's very, very important that we hear everybody's opinion because we all have to live in this city together. So I wanted to make tonight about briefing you on some of the results of the survey, which you have on that letter, as well as talking to you about the strategies we can implement moving forward, and then giving everybody an opportunity to share how they feel, because like I said, we have to live here together. And while I think that this issue has pretty overwhelming support in one direction, it doesn't minimize the opinions of others. And I just want everyone to understand that while I am with you, we have to respect everybody. So that said, we've already had a little excitement tonight. Please be respectful with your comments. There's no reason to argue. I have heard every reason for and every reason against, and I'm not here to persuade anybody. I'm here to listen. So at some point after I'm done talking, I'll give everybody who wants to speak the opportunity to say something. But I made a commitment when I was campaigning to bring backyard hens to a vote on council. How we accomplish that, I want you all to be a part of the conversation, but no matter how we end tonight, I do intend to bring it to a vote. So I want to tell you, as of this morning, 1,687 people completed the Backyard Hen survey, which is pretty amazing, because the arena survey I did the first week I was in office only got 449 people. So that's amazing. It's amazing that we got 3 times as many people completing that survey than when the city did it originally. So I think it's easy to say that this is an issue that people are passionate about. And if you look at the numbers, it was pretty overwhelmingly yes. The final numbers were 93% for backyard hens amending the city code. That question read, should the city of Virginia Beach consider amending the city code to allow citizens living in certain residential zones to own and keep hens, no roosters, in their backyards? So it was 93% yes, 7% no. And then I have the district breakdown on that letter that you can see for yourself. Bayside had the most people complete surveys, which is likely why their number was a little bit above average. Bayside, Kempsville, and Princess Anne were the top 3 districts completing surveys, which makes sense to me. Of course, my district was going to have more people completing it. My reach in that district is greater than any of the other districts in the city, but Bayside did have the most people completing the survey, and they had the highest no vote, as you can see by those numbers. A little bit of kind of side information that I didn't print on that. Of the people who completed the survey, most of them were between the ages of 25 and 34 and 35 to 44. I had a lot of questions as to why I wanted to poll the demographics like that. The city is making an effort, a concentrated effort, to retain millennials and Gen Xers in our city. And in the last housing study, we saw that Gen Xers are leaving the city and millennials are having some steady growth. I think it's important to note that Gen Xers and millennials both heavily favor urbanized urban homesteading in some regards. So I think as we move forward as a city, we need to take into consideration that the populations we're trying to retain and grow are in favor of having more versatility with their land. So the way that broke out was we had 587 votes in the 45 to 64 range. We had 453 votes within the 35 to 44 range, 360 votes for the 25 to 34 range, and then the rest of the age groups were pretty varied, but only 115 no votes overall out of the 1,600 and some votes that were completed. Of the no votes, I think it's important to note that 21% said they would consider it if the zoning or if the requirements were, they would consider it based on the requirements set forth in the code. Overall, though, the no votes were pretty definitively no. And then there were a handful of people who said they would support with requirements. But in terms of the yes votes, 109 said it depends on the regulations. 40% of those said that they would support with requirements, and then 59% said they would support with or without requirements. So just some information for you to take out. I am willing to give anybody who wants a copy of that full survey. Of course, I will remove last names and emails so that nobody has to worry about their information being compromised. But anybody who wants to see the thoughts, I will tell you, largely the thoughts were all kind of consistent. You know, most people did not want to have roosters in their yards, which is reasonable. Most people wanted certain lot requirements, which I also feel is reasonable. And most people had concerns with the way the city could manage the licensing or how we regulate people having backyard hens. Recently, Councilman Moss had his town hall on Saturday. He did say he would support hens through a conditional use permit, which is progress. So we have a couple options moving forward if we want to bring this to a vote. There are basically three ways to bring to vote. There's the obvious one, which is for me just to propose a change to the code and tell everybody to vote for it, which we've never voted on the issue. So the way council stands is technically an unknown. I can tell you I've talked to just about everybody, and I don't think we have the votes to get it passed at the moment. I would like to put everybody on the record. So I'm fine with just taking the resolution or the ordinance that Bill DeSteff submitted or drafted and just putting that up and see what happens. The second option is to do a ballot referendum. Now, all referendums in Virginia Beach are non-binding, but if we had the kind of success my survey had, a ballot referendum would send a very clear message. It takes a lot of organization and it takes a lot of hard work, but it would be more factual. The fact of the matter is my survey is not scientific. You can complete the survey multiple times if you're smart enough to delete the cookies. There's no way to guarantee that information is being completed by Virginia Beach residents. So my survey serves as a good, test out there. It says there are people who are interested in this issue, there are people who are passionate about this issue, but a ballot referendum is the only way to prove that the city wants to move in that direction. So Councilman Moss has said many times that he would prefer a ballot referendum to be brought. But again, that's something that has to be organized on a grassroots level. The third option is a conditional use permit, which when we were in session, it might have been last meeting or the meeting before, we found out that with a conditional use permit, you can have wildlife on your property in a residential area. That is contingent on a lot of things. You don't just go to the city and say, I'd like to keep a raccoon in my backyard. But it is possible with the proper criteria to do so. And so John has said to me, hey, why don't we try a conditional use permit? I floated the idea by a couple of other council members, and the response I got was that would be much more palatable. So what I wanted to kind of put out to you all tonight was a ballot referendum would send a definitive message and would probably be the best way for you all to get exactly what you want. Me putting up a change to the code, it would likely get shot down. I will do it, but it will likely get shot down. And a conditional use permit is probably the fastest way to accomplish the goal of getting backyard hens in Virginia Beach. I don't want to make that decision for you. I would like to hear what your thoughts are. So that's just something you can think about if you want to speak tonight and say, Jessica, I think that a conditional use permit would be amenable for now. My feeling towards a conditional use permit is there's nothing saying in a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years down the road we can't try to get something better. Because a lot of what the concerns are is that chickens are unsanitary, that I had a phone call at 4 o'clock this morning from a gentleman saying that there are roof rats. Those are the concerns. People are worried about pests, they're worried about health, safety. So those kind of things could be disproved through practical application. If people see their neighbor having a backyard hen and they do everything correctly and they take care of their pet and they treat it with respect and their neighbor gets a handful of eggs every once in a while, they may feel differently about it. The problem is that it's the unknown. So I want to get it passed. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But those are our options. I'd like to hear any comments and any questions. Like I said, I'm not trying to change any minds here tonight. I think the room is overwhelmingly in one direction anyway. But please be respectful if you're going to step up to the microphone. And, like I said, we all have to live together. You can go ahead. And then, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for having us here and pulling this all together. I appreciate that. The other thing is, are you willing to divulge the names of the city councilmen that are going to vote against this? Because I don't intend to support them and would rather campaign against them.
So, I will be honest with you. It's a soft poll. I can't tell you who is not going to vote for it because the reaction I have gotten, and many council members, these are the words they've said to me, we've never voted on it. Not, yeah, let's do it, or no, I'm not doing it. They just say, well, we've never voted on it. And I think they're concerned that I'm going to bring it to a vote, which I intend to. But the only way to know is to bring it to a vote. And I spoke with Aaron about it. I said, if we want to bring it to a vote and see who's against it, we can do that. We can put up the ordinance that Senator Steph drafted a while ago and see what happens. If you want to see who's for and who's against, that would be the quickest way to accomplish that goal. But I also want it to pass, which is why I lean towards the conditional use permit.
So I thank you. Could I submit for a conditional use permit right now?
No.
Because it's not. So you have to make a change.
We would have to change city code to allow for you to have a conditional use permit. Currently, you just can't have backyard hens because you're not, unless you're zoned out of agriculture.
So I like the idea of putting it on before city council for a vote, whatever we can come up with, so that we can see where it is. Because we've gotten a lot of, and I know Aaron talking to council members, they sound like they're for it, right, when they're talking to us.
Sure.
But they're never willing to actually submit it before,
Only Shannon, Kane, and Moss. Let's not misrepresent that. Only
So,
Shannon, Kane, and Moss.
and I talked to Councilman Wood, who talks like he's supportive. So there's three that, but I think if it went before a vote, they would probably miss it.
Well,
And then we would know where they stood and we could vote them out.
the chief concern is not that any of them are maybe for or against it. Honestly, I think that they just don't think there's support for the issue. And at the end of the day, they're all reliant on your vote, and so they want to do what's going to keep them where they are at. That's weird to say we, but that's how we all are. We want to stay where we're at because we're trying to accomplish something, for good or for bad. We're all trying to accomplish something. So that's the kind of the angle of the ballot referendum, though. If you showed that there is overwhelming support, if there is really 93% of the city in support of this issue, they can't really vote no with any kind of justification. But again, the survey I did is not scientifically sound. I think everybody who completed that survey is an honest person and probably genuinely lives in Virginia Beach, but I have no way to prove that. And the fact of the matter is I don't have any background in statistics. I hope my questions were consistent. I hope they didn't, make anybody feel like I was leading them on. I genuinely just wanted to hear what people thought. So the ballot referendum is a good way to show there is support for the issue. And again, like was said, if we put it up and see where people vote, then you know who to lobby and who to get rid of it at the next election cycle.
Hi, I'm Leslie Jones from the Centerville District. I'm very much pro backyard hens. What I've seen the city council do is if there's only one or two people who are leaning towards it, and they can get what's called, they'll make a motion and then second it, then I've seen where another person who is not for something make a, what's it called? Substitute motion. So how do you feel, do you gauge that something like that could happen that would try to keep it from even being brought up for a vote? Because most of the time, council people do not want to have a visible vote for something, so.
Well-
Thank you.
To be frank, I suppose if anybody who voted for a substitute motion would be people on the list in terms of lobbying and re-electing. I'm of the opinion that everything deserves a vote, whether I like it or not. I think that people should know where I stand on issues. And as many of you know, and many of you may feel that I'm wrong on this issue, but I'm not afraid of debating my bad ideas with my good ones, because good ones will stick and bad ones won't. And there is no reason for bad ones to be successful. So the only way to assure that good ideas are the ones that prosper is to openly debate them and allow for those to be voiced and opinions to be given. So, I don't know, I'll think on the substitute motion and see how that could be presented.
Hello, thanks for doing this, by the way. So, the city of Virginia Beach is not some isolated city in the middle of Australia somewhere. We're literally surrounded by sister communities, many of whom have already had backyard hens, have had them for years. It seems like the city of Virginia Beach thinks like they're the only ones around, and they're just like blind to the fact that the governor of Virginia has backyard hens. Chesapeake have backyard hens, just all these other surrounding communities, and nobody seems to have a problem with it except the city of Virginia Beach, and they're going to ask all these questions like, oh, we have concerns, we have this, we have that. How do we become a part of the community, so to speak, of Hampton Roads, and instead of the holdout saying, well, we're not going to allow them because we have concerns, whereas everybody else around us has them, and we're sitting here in Virginia Beach just, open.
Behind the times.
Behind the times.
Sure. And you're right, I believe we're the only city on this side of the water that does not allow backyard hens. I said it a lot while I was campaigning. Denver allows for backyard hens. New York City, Los Angeles. Urban homesteading is not a foreign thing anymore, and it's very popular. So it's not. I really think it's fear. I genuinely believe that council is reluctant to approach the issue because they don't know. There is this idea that we're a clean city, and for some reason, chickens are synonymous with dirty. Anybody who has been in a home that has backyard hens, generally that's not true. You will always have people who do not do things properly. And that's why we have the systems we have in place already for any animal that is kept in a home, a dog or cat. The only other issue I can think of is there is a Virginia law that permits somebody to shoot a dog if it is caught, or not caught, if it damages a chicken, basically. So I can see as a pet owner, as somebody who has dogs, that would be heartbreaking to me if I saw my hound dog chase a chicken and kill it, and then the owner insists that my dog be put down because it got their chicken. I don't believe there is any way we can prevent that through an ordinance. I think that has to go through the state. I think we have to approach that issue with the House of Delegates. That said, the same rule applies to cats. If a dog hurts a cat, the dog can be you can be forced to euthanize your animal. So the other counter argument is that Chesapeake and Norfolk are all allowing backyard hens with that law still in place. So, that might just be a sad fact, is if your dog gets caught going after a chicken, you could be forced to euthanize your animal. I don't know if that's as big of an issue as the city has told me it is, but that was on the list of concerns that I was emailed through that survey.
Well, my predecessor who was speaking the same way, we all want to be part of Hampton Roads, which I agree with. But are there statistics from those cities that are allowing hens that can be used to leverage Virginia Beach?
I probably the first week of January, I ended up sitting next to the vice mayor of Chesapeake, and he had made the suggestion to me that we pool the complaints for backyard hens in Chesapeake since Chesapeake would probably be a pretty comparable comparison. I have not done that yet, but it's on my list of things to do. So I think that would be a great thing to do when we present a packet to council, say, Chesapeake did this, this is the list of their complaints. They are a little more rural than we are, but you know, and we could do the same thing for
I was
businesses.
gonna say, yeah, Norfolk as well, but these are, regardless of the three choices that we're looking at, having that information to back up any one of these seems like it makes sense rather than just, I think that Virginia Beach City Council is just afraid to vote on this because it has been not voted on over and over and over again, and it's the whole resort city thing. But we're not bringing, I mean, I don't know, the district's been so amazingly active. Is anybody going to each of these individual council members and say, this is what's happened since these have been passed 2 years ago and a year ago?
I mean, people call me at 4 in the morning. I'm not telling you you shouldn't. I don't appreciate it, but you can. Most of their phone numbers are public record.
Real quick, we did that a couple of years ago, we should do it again, and over the first 2 years that they legalized it in Chesapeake, they had 1 complaint, and it was unfounded. It was just somebody that thought it was illegal, but the person was doing fine, and there was no concern. So that's, and we should do it again, because I'm sure those numbers will be the same.
And again, that could be what warrants doing it through a conditional use permit initially. Because if people are, the way the conditional use permit would be is it would go to planning, and planning would notify your neighbors that you want chickens, and assuming that you all clarified with your neighbors that you want chickens, neighbors don't have any problem, your lot size meets the requirement, you would get just approved through the conditional use permit. Otherwise, if you had a neighbor that was just totally against you having chickens, I mean, they could effectively stop you, but, you know, it's a little bit more middle ground. I think that you would have less requirements through a conditional use permit, because a conditional use permit is inherently restrictive in that way. But if we do just an ordinance, there's gonna be some compromise in what this looks like moving forward.
Hi, I just have a sort of procedural question, and if this is put to a vote with the council and it's rejected, when can it be brought up again?
To my understanding, I can just keep bringing it up. So, I mean, I don't know if that would be strategic, but to my understanding, I just keep saying I'd like to vote on this again. If there's anybody in here who is better at parliamentary procedure than I am, please let me know. But I think I can just keep putting it up.
I know absolutely nothing about this issue, but my wife is passionate about it, so I'm here to support my wife. Uneducated eyes, I do have a question, because I do know we are assessors and very pro-development, and in terms of Chesapeake or Suffolk or wherever, that really is not much of an issue to him or to pro-development folks. A bigger question, and I don't know if we've done the research, is taking other resort cities on the East Coast. Does Fort Lauderdale do it? Does Ocean City do it? Looking and seeing what other resort cities, because you have to convince them that if other resort cities are doing it, it's not hurting the character of them, they're being successful at it, that's going to open the door a lot more. But the Suffolk-Chesapeake argument really isn't, obviously it's not gaining any traction, so it seems like that's the direction to go in.
That's a great idea. I will look into whether other resort cities who are dependent on the tourism industry, if they have if they have the similar. I lean towards yes, because this is a trendy issue. People like the idea of gardening and chickens and being self-sustaining. This is not. I'm always surprised when I think about we're not already doing this, because it seems like the city of Virginia Beach likes to kind of be, with what's hip, if you will. So I'm surprised we're not there. This is Carolyn Weems. She's a current school board member. So
I just represent myself, so don't get me in trouble.
I know, but I meant. Is there anybody else who's a public official here tonight? I meant to. Oh, of course. Leslie Jones, everybody. She is our Dare Soil and Water Conservation Director.
Thank you, Jessica. We represent the 5 and under and the 55 and older, so that's slim group. That did answer the question there. But
you know, I'm from outside of Chattanooga. I go home and they have gardens, they have chickens, they have eggs. I go to my Clemson reunion, same thing there. I go to Charlotte, North Carolina. My girlfriends bring me chicken eggs. I mean, it's all over the place. So I'm definitely for it. Educationally, I think it's a great thing for us to teach our youngsters too. You know, coming from that perspective. With the conditional use permit, though, how long does that take? Like, I've got 2 acres, I don't have any neighbors, I'm back to a lake, you know, so we've already designed our chicken coop, you know, we're already working on it. But how long would that take me to get, or anyone here to get a conditional, and how long does it last? And if we go that route, then can we show that it works, and then you go for the full course, the full passing? Because I personally would like to see something, because I know I've worked in politics for a while, and that substitute motion can totally kill something. So I would like to see something, even if it's a small part, get passed and then build on from that.
Now, I don't know how long the application process is generally for a conditional use permit. It feels like they come to us really quickly. The one we had recently about the wildlife rehabilitation, I don't think it was probably in there more than a month, maybe 60 days. I will inquire with planning to see how long the application process generally is. In terms of trying to do it through the conditional use permit way and then pushing it through like a full code change, I would say probably we would want to wait at least a year so we had some data to support that there's not a lot of contentiousness towards the issue. I think waiting any less than that, the city would not be able to justify changing city code. That's just my instinct. As I said, Councilman Moss and I, to my knowledge, have not talked to anybody. I talked to Councilman Dyer this afternoon about the conditional use permit idea. But outside that, I'm not under an impression that Councilman Moss has spoken to anybody about it. But, you know, the general vibe I got was it would be more palatable. So I think it has a better chance. Perhaps the methodology should be to submit the draft that Senator DeStep did while he was on council. Go ahead and pick out who's against it, and then come back with a conditional use permit and try it that way. You know, I'm about accomplishing things. I want to get it done. I understand the wanting to know who's for and who's against. I think that's a valid concern. I think that's something I think we should know. I think that's important. Pam.
In addition to belonging to the for State Beach Hens Club, I also belong to the for Chesapeake Hens, and for Portsmouth Hens. They have also there's a bigger group, Hunting Rose Hens. There are 2 ladies in Chesapeake or Portsmouth. They go around and do like educational sessions. They do it at Chesapeake, the library in Western Branch, backyard chicken keeping 101, and they bring the animal carriers, and then they teach you all about what you need to start on keeping backyard hens, and make it very educational. It's very sanitary. They hold their hens just like a pet, and it's their library, and they teach you all about it. And in the other session, in their home, they even have like a first aid kit that you prepare for your chickens. And you do care for your chickens. You do notice when they have like an ailment or something, they got bitten by a plague or something like that. So it's very educational. It makes people feel that they care about their chickens. It's a pet. It helps your environment. You can use it as a fertilizer, and you can get eggs from it, and you can have a garden growing from your fertilizer, and you can feed your chickens that way. I think it's a very good eco cycle that people learn about from.
Thank you. No comment. I agree.
I have a question about Chesapeake's implementation.
Yes.
Now, I'm fairly new to this issue. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't allow backyard hens, looking at both of the facts, but I know how some people might not be comfortable with it right now. I think I remember hearing it was Chesapeake or one of the other neighboring cities had a trial run where it was a temporary ordinance that would expire after a period of time if there were any complaints. Do you know what city that was, or is there any like?
I think you're right. I think it is Chesapeake.
Yeah.
that trial run expired, and it was last year that they got their full backyard hens. Temporary trial, that's an idea.
I think that might be a good way to get people more comfortable with it.
I can tell you a couple of the other issues that I read on the survey was, the hen egg laying life was a concern. What would happen to the hens after they stopped laying eggs? Correct me if I'm wrong, I think a hen's average lifespan is 3 to 5 years. Is that about right?
10. Depending on the breed, heritage breeds can get up to 10 years old.
Wow. Right. My aunt has chickens in Denver, and her hens have never really made it past 4 years. Of course, they have lots of coyotes, so that's shortening their lives, for sure.
It's me again. Sorry, guys, I feel like I'm following this, but I have some concerns. You talked about, the thing about the dog attacking. Well, I believe at the General Assembly level, they've made it optional that it's not mandatory that an animal be put down, that it's not there anymore, and that I believe Bill D. stuff was helpful in getting that through General Assembly. Could we possibly use him as a conduit to just take that off the table?
I think it would be great if there was some kind of lobbying at the General Assembly's level and at the state Senate level for that matter. That law, to my understanding, was put into place to protect, was about farmers.
Right.
It wasn't really about people keeping chickens in their suburban neighborhoods. So, it might just be time to relook at it. A lot of times what happens with all laws is they were implemented years ago and they've sat on the books and nobody's made an issue of them, so they just don't change. I would encourage everyone to reach out to your district representation and your state representation because they have some say in this as well.
Because we're in Dillon
State.
State. One more thing, you brought up about the conditional permit. I'm not sure the actual technicalities, but from what I've heard in bounced office, it's about $400 for a conditional permit. And that has to do with a lot of the bureaucracy that they have to plow through, that I think through John Moss. But I'm thinking, is that once a year kind of a $400, or is it a constant, every year, or if it's once you've got the conditional permit, I'm just throwing the $400 out there, but it's very pricey.
What I'll look into is if the conditional use permits have a cost based on the permit, because I don't know enough about conditional use permits to give you an answer to that.
Because it might be that we would want
Sure.
to go directly to asking
For a code change.
for,
I will find out if those permits, if the cost associated with those permits are set by, based on the issue, or if they're decided on a flat rate, or if there has to be any cost. I'll look into the cost of that associated with it. You can everyone call me Jessica, please.
I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard there are other organizations in the surrounding towns similar to the ones that is represented here. And I would think that if we could contact them, maybe get some helpful hints and pitfalls that they avoided or experiences they had getting that ordinance passed, it might be helpful.
I agree.
I operate an oyster farm in Broad Bay, and we face a lot of opposition from the people who live along the watershed. And it's funny because it's something I think about oysters and that they live completely under the water. They aren't seen. They actually are entirely, basically 99% beneficial being there. But everyone who lives on the water hates us. We face opposition every few months, new bills. We're constantly being limited in our operation. And so my concern with the conditional use is we're under a lot of obligations. They call them user lease agreements,
right.
Where we just go to a homeowners who have an issue with us and we say, yes, we'll abide by this, we'll keep stuff low out of sight, you know, we'll try not to operate in front of your backyard when you're having a party. So my issue with the conditional use permit is it allows a lot of time for those same kind of people, who don't want us there, who have a lot more money and a lot more sway than the people who probably do want to raise chickens in their backyard to start throwing a lot more obligations to us. So my suggestion would be maybe like Leslie was saying, like there is a $400. Obviously, the city wants to get their cut. They want their share. Is there any way to make something more permanent to stick by like agreeing for people who want backyard hens to pay a tax that would perhaps prompt?
I've discussed with a couple people doing their licensing like you do with your dog. The reality of that is most people don't pay their licensing fee for their dogs, so why would they pay for their chicken? Or they don't, not necessarily purposefully. Maybe I think most people who don't pay it they pay it on accident. But I think you're right. They're going to want to cut. I'm going to look in further into the permitting process, see if there is any variation to that. See if somebody knows the answer, speak up. But
I believe it's a $170 application fee, $200 for the actual fee. It says 30 days notice for when it's got to be posted, but you have to hit the cycles right because I can't remember exactly when you have to have it in front of submitted so that it goes to council, then it gets kicked to planning, and then back to the planning meeting, which is, you might know which, it's 1 day a month or whatever. So you have to hit those days right to do it. So like you said, it's about a month, it should be, but it really extends out to about 2 months, sometimes 3. You got a hurricane that knocks down your signs, and you got everything's
right, yeah. And it sounds like it's probably a set fee for everything, and that might disqualify this idea out the gate. I just wanted to bring it to you.
So you said there are 3 options, and I guess I'm just trying to gauge from you, is it either or can you do all of them?
We could probably do all of them. I don't really think there are any restrictions, and there could be a 4th or 5th idea. These are just the thoughts that I've had over the last 30 days in terms of what to bring to you guys tonight and how to, execute this. So, if somebody has another thought, I like the idea of a temporary trial. I know that, Chesapeake did that, and perhaps that's the way we go. Maybe we ask council, hey, give us this many months, and if we can prove to you that it's all kosher, then that's what we do. And I think there was a comment made on Facebook that, depending on what we do, we give up something. And that all of the options that have been proposed tonight by me or by you all, you're going to give up something. I mean, I think most of the people here want to just see hens be legalized with no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But the fact of the matter is that I don't believe that will happen. Pragmatically, it's not. I'm not going to just walk in and say, make it legal, and it's going to be voted in, and everyone's going to have an infinite amount of chickens that they want. So, yeah, I would really like for everyone to think about it, email me, talk amongst yourselves, let me know what you think. I'm committed to bringing it however we want to bring it. I don't have a preference other than wanting to accomplish the goal.
So, my thoughts, and I think it's been brought up with the conditional use permit, and I do think it's 400, because I think that's what John said. So, I think that's going to be hard for a lot of people to afford a $400 conditional use permit. So, I think that's a temporary solution, which, could benefit if you had a few people that got it and there's no problems, then that could, help us, in the long run. But I guess the other question I had was for the referendum, because there really hasn't been any talk on that at all. What would we need to do to get a referendum, to get it on the ballot?
Reed, how many signatures do you know are required for the referendum?
All right, so there are 2 ways to get it on the ballot. 6 votes by city council to put it on the ballot, or 32,000 votes. It's 25% of the last number of people who voted in the last election. So for light rail, we had a 32,000 number. That took us roughly 12 months of many people at many shopping centers. 32,000 signatures. of those, about 20% are discounted because they're not properly filled out. So you have to collect closer to 40,000 if you want to force it onto the ballot.
So honestly, you probably need 40,000 signatures, because I don't think we have the 6 votes to get it on the ballot. I believe if I asked for the council to vote to put it on the ballot, I think that we'd make it, I think we could get a couple of votes. I don't see why Councilman Moss wouldn't vote to put it on the ballot. I think, you know, I mean, I can't speak for any of the other ones, but I'm happy to do that as well. But it is, collecting signatures would get you on the ballot. It is obviously doable because that's how light rail was challenged. But it is a lot of work. I made the comment that if everybody who filled out my survey got 10 people to sign a petition, you would all have way more than you would need to get on the ballot, so.
Thank you. I just want to make a couple comments. One is that, having until recently lived in the ag zone portion of Virginia Beach, we had free-ranging chickens at our farm, and frequently would have dogs come in and would get some of the chickens. The way that the ordinance that Jessica was referring to is worded, it sounds like the animal control officers come out that they're obligated to put down the dog, and they're not. They're not. We had them come out many times because obviously these were dogs that were running loose, which is also against Virginia Beach regulations. If your chickens are in your backyard and they're fenced and they're contained in their coop, you're not going to have dogs coming in. Ours free range the farm, and every time we had problems, it was always dogs from out of the area that were coming through. None of our immediate neighbors' dogs. We would have animal control come and get the dogs. They never put them down. They always took them to animal control and took care of it from there. So it's not an automatic death sentence. And I do think it came up. I don't know what happened. I know that it was going to be, they were going to be talking about changing that period. The other thing is just on an FYI, I just pulled up the actual application for a conditional use permit. It's on the BPW website, and it says the fee payable to Treasurer, City of Virginia Beach, it's $200 for nonprofit organizations or home occupation. It's $900 for all other uses.
Jesus.
And whether that's changeable, I don't know.
And it could be. I don't know. Or I'm going to find out.
Good evening, my name is Ray Greenman. I live in the Ocean Lakes portion of Virginia Beach. Having grown up on a farm, I've raised thousands of chickens, so I know a little bit about chickens. What I'm here to talk about a little bit is about the referendum. There seems to have been some questions. If you want this to pass, the benefit of the referendum is the fact that you are out talking to the public for a year. You are engaging your fellow citizens who are asking, why do you want to do this? And that conversation turns into votes at the poll. In the case of light rail, that particular issue had actually passed at the ballot in the previous referendum. But because we were out day after day educating our citizens about the issue, that's why we won that referendum. So if you really want your citizens to put the pressure on your city council, who by the way is not inclined to support this initiative, if you talk to them, there is not the votes to get a yes today. If you put this on the ballot and this thing wins by more than a 2/3 margin, you'll have your ordinance, you won't have the conditional use permits, and you'll be able to do it. So I would encourage you, in addition to whatever avenues Jessica's doing, move forward with petitioning for a referendum, because that's how you're going to get your votes at the ballot. If you do not, very well-funded moneyed interests will come out and confuse the electorate with ads and a campaign, and you may end up losing, not because it's a virtuous cause, but because people don't understand the issue. So I would simply encourage you, as someone who's done this a number of times, there's a huge benefit in getting organized, going out and talking to people and explaining to them why it is you want to do this and how this is not a problem for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I would add that doing a referendum is not exclusive to whatever I put forth to council. Even if I brought an initiative to council, you could still be starting the process of doing a referendum. We could theoretically do all of these ideas. We could put everything up and see what's stuck. I like the idea of doing a ballot initiative. I think that's a great way to educate everybody, and I think it actually would be easier than the light rail referendum. I think it'd be much easier. And I will also tell you, I have spoken with developers in the city. A lot of them don't care. They care about making money off you, and if they gotta let chickens in their backyard, it's not. I don't think you're gonna have the contentiousness that was presented with light rail. That said, there are people who just simply don't want it to happen, and I think that's probably why it has not happened.
I just wanted to kind of speak on behalf of this process of conditional use permit. I'm a landscape architect and I would submit conditional use permits for people all the time. I think for this residential use, it would probably be the $200 application fee. But in addition, typically there's conditions put on the conditional use, which would be like setbacks and, proper planting and how you can use your property in association to the side of your property. So just so everybody's aware, it would depend on literally where you live. And I live in North End, so I'm not expecting that this is going to benefit me too much based on property size. But that would be something to consider if that's beneficial. There's going to be guidelines, restrictions. If this is an accessory structure, it's got to be 20 feet off the property line or whatever. So all of those things would be in consideration of that route.
Right, and I believe that any avenue we go down, there's gonna be some kind of lot restrictions and setbacks and all of those words are gonna be thrown around and how this will look, because most people don't want townhouses to have probably any pets for that matter. I think it would depend on the neighborhood. And that's another point I wanted to make. My opinion on this issue should be that this ordinance does not supersede HOAs and homeowners associations. I believe wholeheartedly that they should have the decision. And if you live in an HOA or any kind of homeowners association, you willingly move there, and while anybody who has ever lived in an HOA can tell you that they can be a pain, that's a voluntary act. And that was a concern that was brought up many times, was the concern that this would trump an HOA. I think that the HOA should have the last say as to whether or not you can have a pet or a hen or a pig or whatever the issue is. Is there any other comments? Comments, questions, statements of disbelief?
Yes, I have one other that hasn't been mentioned. Virginia Beach has a council of civic organizations that has membership of over 136 civic leagues and 100 homeowners associations. Its job is for this exact purpose. It has all of the contacts to all of the civic leagues. I know I was a vice president of the Council of Civic Organizations. You would be well advised to contact the Council of Civic Organizations, use that network, and get this information out to all the homeowners associations and civic leagues. It's their job, and it already exists. So instead of reinventing the wheel, take advantage of it and use that to your benefit. Thank you.
As far as, the whole city deal, as far as having conditions, that's where I kind of get a little, not necessarily miffed, but it just doesn't rub me the right way. I shouldn't have to be begging and asking the government, whether it's federal, local, state, whatever, the government for me to put food on my table. Whether it's chickens, going out to hunt deer, whatever. I shouldn't have to be buying the government off to put food on my table. It's no different from me opening up my own business, being an entrepreneur. They want entrepreneurs in the city, but yet I have to buy off the city in order to open up a business. That's my responsibility. As far as with the dogs issue, My aunt has chickens up in Cleveland. Her property's not very big. She has, I believe it's a two-car garage, maybe a 1.5-car garage. It's a fairly decent size. Behind that, she has a fairly large trampoline, which does not leave very much property room for her hen house. She has 6 chickens. She's never once had a problem with it. She's actually taken some of her chicken eggs to her neighbors next door, which have early teenagers at the time. I don't know how old they are now. They were dumbfounded where the chicken eggs came from. Dumbfounded. But yet, this is our current educational system. As far as them jumping into other people's yards, they flush them out really easy, just like that. All you got to do is give them mealworms or something like that, and they're just like, oh my God, this is heaven. As far as dogs, I don't really think it's much of an issue. If it were to happen, well, the person that owns the hen, you need to own up and go get me another hen, point blank. My dog didn't have a problem with it. She runs off leash. We have no problems with it. We tell her no, we're firm about it, and she leaves them alone, and she understands it. But that's the problem. A lot of owners do not control their dogs. It's just point blank. So.
Thank you.
My concerning question is on conditional use permits. It's looking more and more like that's a very questionable way to go. But when we're talking about changing the city ordinance and compromising to make this more palatable to the people that are against it, how do we keep the regulations and restrictions that they may want to put on this from running away so much that it becomes burdensome to the people that want to do this, and also just by demographic of the city, for example, property line restrictions, lot size restrictions, they can put so many regulations on this that it becomes a de facto ban on chickens, even though in wording it's legal.
I think that's a good point. The comment back I would make to everybody in this room is, one, if you did not read Senator DeSteff's ordinance, read it. Please give me feedback on it. And then come up with a list of things that you would be okay with getting rid of. I want it to pass just, whatever you want to do. That's how I would love to see it look like. But pragmatically, that's not going to happen. And I don't like to say that. I think if it was a council of one, you can have as many chickens as you want. But it's not. And if we want to get some chickens, there has to be compromise. What I would say would be the end goal would be to come up with what we're willing to say we'll do, and then in a year or two, ask for it to change to be a little more flexible, and then in another year, ask for it to be more flexible, and then in another year, maybe we can have very, very, very little restriction. Government doesn't do anything other than restrict, so there is going to be some version of restriction. But I think the only way to bring council around to it is to give them some compromise and then slowly ask for them to take away restrictions as we go.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, we didn't go through all this process to get, a $200 fee and a 5-acre lot size requirement.
I agree.
There I go, yay, victory.
Right.
And really, in reality, with one person, it's going to happen.
Yes.
One thing that I'm concerned about is, and I don't know, I saw it a couple of years ago on TV news when there was a Virginia Beach, I think it was towards the beginning of the Backyard Hens, and they had a news segment, and it was very, very negative. I would hate for something like that to repeat again. I swear they knew this person whose house and backyard they went into, who was beside the lady who had sheep in her backyard. And there was a chain link fence. And this lady was talking about, I should only have to see manicured lawns and built-in pools. That's the way we are here. Bullshit, I have a that. I don't want to see you in the pool. Actually. I apologize. Another thing is,
want to make fun again on the city council person. Where is the boundaries for the resort part of Virginia Beach end? Honestly, where I live, we have no resort. But the city council spends so much money in it, and we just want to live our lives, not be told all the time what we can and cannot do. I just want to be good people. I want my garden, little chickens, and my dog. And if someone's dog comes in my backyard that gets my chickens, you have to get through the fence, they have to get in the coop. Someone buying me a chicken. What I remember hearing on the news or in any article newspaper regarding backyard hens, and which people remember, they're in your backyard. We're not talking about them roaming on the streets to interfere with the resorts, what it looks like. I don't live there. I don't live in the resort. It's really fancy on postage to my mom. It said Virginia Beach, but it's 12 miles away. Depending on the traffic.
Or suburban sprawl, you're absolutely right.
You know,
most of us are not in the resort.
What about our rights as the people who pay the taxes?
I would encourage every one of you to reach out to the council members, because the only way to change what you're speaking about is to elect different council members.
Yeah.
That's the only way. When I came out and said I'm going to do this, I said I'm a backyard hens person, flat out at the gate. So I didn't hide behind the issue. The only way to make any change is to change your representation. That's just the bottom line. I'm going to try to get this done by 7 so you all can get home to eat your dinner. But we have 3 people, so is there anybody else who wanted to say comment? I haven't really heard any people not have any concerns outside of the code idea. Is there anybody here who wanted to speak that had concerns about either the health or the safety, or anybody at all?
No.
Nobody be afraid. Everybody here is going to be respectful. All right.
Wait, I'm next though, right?
Go right ahead.
What I want to say is, keep in mind that Virginia Beach is the world's largest resort city. So in terms of square mile, to try to compare it to Rehoboth or any other, smaller community, we are very, very large. To the lady's point, she lives 12 miles from the oceanfront, and the lady who does live at the oceanfront understands that she shouldn't have them there. So we all get that. Anybody who's taking care of chickens, as long as you're responsible, as you would be with your cat or your dog or anything else. I have neighbors that their cats are in my backyard, their dogs are in my backyard, and they're not responsible for their pets. There are people that take care of chickens that do a 10 times better job than a lot of people. It's just their pets that are always been allowed.
Sure. You're absolutely right. And there will always be people who don't do it well.
Correct.
Oh, well, hang on.
Sorry about that.
My name is Rick Caldwell. I live in the Brandon section of the neighborhood, or the Brandon neighborhood of Virginia Beach. I haven't spoken to any of the members of the council about this issue except for Jessica and John Moss. John Moss is opposed to this on very different grounds than the way the group is used to addressing it. He's not concerned about the health aspects or chickens getting loose, dogs getting chickens. The premise of his reason for being opposed is simply that he sees that he's addressing the property rights not only of the homeowners who want to have chickens, but also their neighbors. His belief is that your neighbors bought their homes with under the impression that you couldn't have hens, and that to introduce that would change the terms of you know, what your neighbors, the conditions that your neighbors thought they were buying their property. And he doesn't believe that he should unilaterally change that. And he says that if we put it up to a referendum and it won, he would vote in favor of backyard hens. I think if we're gonna be lobbying the members of the council, we're gonna have to address that concern as well. We're gonna have to, when did backyard hens become illegal? I was 12 years old when my family moved here, in 1980. And I can tell you that on Centerville Turnpike, there were many homes along there, right around the corner from where I live, that had all kinds of hens running around. In the front yard, no fences. Never once saw a chicken run over in the middle of the yard. Never saw a dog with a chicken. But at some point in our lifetimes, that law changed. So your property rights have been changed at some point. And my mother still lives in the house that my parents bought in 1980. Not a property right that she particularly wants to use, but it's a term that is a property right that my parents had when they bought that house that has at some point changed.
So I don't really see how that's an argument.
It's been done once, and that's got to be addressed with Councilman Moss. And if enough people can bring that up to him and tell him that changed at some point in our lifetime, might be able to get him to change his mind on that. Or one additional vote in addition to Jessica. And one other thought. I don't know how many of you are part of the Facebook group, the Virginia Beach for Hens Facebook group. Probably a lot of you are. Yeah, probably a lot of people here are. If we're going to go the route of putting a referendum initiative on the ballot, a referendum on the ballot, like Reed said, this is an opportunity that you're going to have to talk to a lot of people to address those concerns. One thing you got to realize is an experienced activist. You know, I see Reed, I see Leslie, I see
We should
Dane.
look up when that referendum, or we should look up when that ordinance was changed.
Yeah. You know, I see 5 faces here besides mine that I'm familiar with, that I know have been full-time activists for a long time, very experienced activists. The rest of you I've never seen before, for the most part. I don't know how much experience you have with being activists, but if you're going to do that, and we've got a year for that ballot initiative to be on the ballot for us to talk, you've got a part-time job.
Show us what to do.
Well,
Tell us how to.
talk to us. We'll do it. We'll do it. You got it. But this group, this Virginia Beach for Hens group has to organize. You got to come up with some, you got to have regular meetings. And somebody's going to have to write that law that we expect to be advanced on city council and present it to them.
The only thing I would add to what Rick's saying is, if everybody in this room got a sheet of one of those petition signatures, I think they have like 30 slots on them, maybe? 25 per page. That gets you real close real quick if you've got everybody who's for this issue to fill up one petition sheet. I mean, it's all, if you have a lot of people doing it, it doesn't take that much time.
All right, so the point I want to bring up is that, the point about the tourist areas, Laguna Beach allows, in California they allow chickens, and so we're asking, what everybody in here, I think, understands there has to be restrictions, so we're asking no roosters, no more than 6 hens, to be kept within a coop. So if for some reason a dog gets your hen, it's your own fault. So sorry for you, nobody's buying you a chicken, you were supposed to keep your hen in the coop. Okay, so my other thing is the city allows people to keep homing pigeons. They provide nothing. They allow them to fly around the city and poop all over our vehicles. Can you tell me why that's okay for tourists? If we have the chicken bird flu going around, why is that okay to keep homing pigeons? Hens are not flying around the city. They're providing something for us.
last year, because of the chicken food, because of the tight quarters that hens were kept in the commercial farms, the hens were dying. There was no eggs in Kroger last year because of that. And so that's why we're all kind of wanting to be able to keep our own hens, to be able to provide for ourselves. So we'd like also, I've been in talks with Shannon Kane, and she said that she was going to do some research in Chesapeake and speak with, I'm kind of a brain freeze on the last name. He's a council member that helped get it legal for Chesapeake and law. I also know him personally, but I'm in front of everybody, I'm nervous and whatever. So yeah, he also has been talking with Ms. Kane about it. She was supposed to do some research, and she was definitely giving me the dance before election, but now after election, she's gone dark and doesn't respond to me. So she was supposed to do some research on that, so that could be somebody on our team. Councilman Moss does bring up very valid points that we need to respect the property rights of our neighbors as well, just like we want our rights on our house. Our neighbors also want to enjoy their own. So yes, we have to come to understand that we have restrictions. Maybe we need a 6-foot fence or something along those lines. The permit thing, people are saying it's ridiculous because why do we need a permit? The city just needs to understand that if they want millennials to live in the city, we need to understand that's what we want. And that's who's voting for them on the next election. So they need to really consider what all of us want. Because we're not going away, and I'm going to continue to grow the group.
Excellent. All right. One more. Anybody else? I want to eat dinner too.
I'd like to address that objection of John Moss. It's a simple solution to that, and I've been through it. You just ask your neighbor if it's all right, if he'll give you his permission. That's it. If he doesn't, you can't have it because he has property rights and they must be respected. But if you're on good terms with your neighbor and you say, well, there's going to be plenty of eggs, you probably would like a few. It's never been a problem.
Thank you.
And that's included in the ordinance that the permission is required.
I would, there was a white paper on the Facebook event page that I would encourage everyone to read. The ordinance that Senator Duceppe had written, I would encourage everyone to read. I would really like to use it as a jumping point. I don't like to reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. So if you guys are comfortable with the way that's worded, then let's just start there. I really think that the goal moving forward would be for this group to organize and get going on a ballot referendum. And if somebody wants to get back to me, if we want to just bring forward what has already been done, I'll reintroduce it.
What about what's been done with the temporary?
Yeah, we could do it. We could say that
Trial run.
we could do the ordinance that was written and say the only thing I want to change in here is that this is going to be good for a 9-month period to see how it goes. We could do that, and then in the meantime, a ballot referendum should be organized moving forward.
Yes.
Because like I said, my survey's not scientific, but I think it's pretty darn close.
So I definitely like it brought up and voted on, so it's on record of them voting no, so when it comes time to vote, everybody knows this person said no, so we can activate the group against him. We also need to find out a way, get in touch with Reed or Leslie or somebody to get an actual, official, whatever, the petition to fill out. I had the online one going, but it was shot down by council saying that it's an online one, it doesn't count as the fictitious, so I kind of just stopped advertising that, but we need to get something, just like she said, 10 people, if you get 10 people to fill out that survey, we'll have plenty of people on the ballot, talking with people, getting votes, but I think it's imperative that we find out on record who's against it, so we can kind of drive the force against them to kind of, if you want us to vote for you, this is what we want.
Well, the next council race is in 2018.
Well, Jessica, that's a win-win situation. I totally agree with that. If we can, I think we really could get way more numbers than we do on the light rail referendum. I mean, my memory goes as far as your nose. That's one of my favorite sayings. And you can't tell me that dog barking next to me is any worse than chicken. They don't nowhere close to even being the same amount.
To be truthful with you, I think most people don't realize it's illegal.
Yes.
I don't think anybody really does. Honestly, just talking to the press and talking to people as I go about my day, they're like, we can't have chickens here.
If you're trying to go about a conditional use permit, that's a fee, that's something we gotta pay, that's growing government right there.
My stance on the conditional use permit is I just wanted to bring it up that it was being talked about. So if it's possible to do a conditional use permit without these kind of fees, you know, I mean, I don't know. I never say never. Maybe I should.
It would take 6 of them like you.
That's true. That's
There's
true.
a permit that allows the city to come check your property all the time.
Now, that's another.
I don't disagree.
Well, thank you very much for coming, Jessica.
Thank
You've done
you.
a lot and coming here for us
Sure.
tonight. And I think we should continue to organize, and I'll put, events together on Facebook so we can kind of get together and discuss getting an actual, petition together. I hate to be cheap, but there's a donation jar if you want to help, because as you see, all the ads have been sponsored, so I'd be okay with that. But yeah, we need to set up an event, we need to continue to push forward. I'll continue to bring it to everybody's attention when the next, town hall meeting is not with just Jessica, we need to see other people, we need to be heard, we can't just go home tonight and like, okay, that's it. We need to be, all of us need to be personal activists for him, so get your neighbors, let's get the petition together, let's all jump in and get her done.
Just to piggyback on that, and then we're gonna wrap up. I would encourage you all to constantly talk to the council members.
Where are they? They don't do town halls like this.
I know that Councilwoman Henley does them quarterly. John does them pretty frequently. Bobby and I are talking about doing a joint one at some point in the next couple weeks. I know Councilman Jones is frequent to a lot of the Civic League meetings. I don't know that he holds his own formal town halls, but I know he's about. I can't really speak for any of the other ones because I haven't seen anything publicized for them yet. But you can call them. As I said, I literally got a phone call 4 o'clock this morning. So emailing, calling, make yourself known. Show up to council meetings. You can say whatever you want during council comments or the open mic that they have. You can talk about whatever you want.
I tried that past, but if anybody, we need to sign up tonight. If anybody's interested in contacting me or Reed or whatever, we need to get your information, so is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a sign-in sheet earlier. I wanted to get a head count. The couple things I would encourage you to do, if you haven't seen my Facebook page, please go and like it so that you can keep up with me. There are a lot of things coming up on council agendas, and this is an issue I love, but there are a lot of big things coming down the pipeline. Council this year and next year are going to be making decisions that impact the city in the next 50 years. And one of the points I have made is that I'll be pretty much one of the only council members to see how those decisions play out in 50 years. So I'm real vested in this. So, and there's many people in this room who are in the same position. So the Hens is a big issue, and if this is what got you excited and activated and interested in participating in this, politics is all local. And the biggest change we can make is by getting involved on the local level. And if this issue is what inspires you, please be a part of the conversation. Next week, we're going to be talking about housing. We're going to be talking tomorrow about what our public transportation is going to look like moving forward. And they don't believe there is people out there who want to have a say in these issues. So let's get the Hens done, but we got a lot of other things we got to talk about. And I am just so very grateful to have everybody here tonight. I will make myself available to you anytime you need, barring my family time. If you have not met my adorable son, there he is. And this is my husband, Matt, who's a teacher at CTAC. He likes to smell things. Anyway, so please thank the pastor on our way out for giving us his church. We hit capacity at Donnie very quickly. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, if in the future you want to use our facility again for our community, it's no charge, just let me know anytime.
Thank you. Lastly, Lily Coffee Company was gracious to keep their doors open for us tonight, even though we didn't use their facility. So please thank them. Get some coffee.